I don't really see him as a rebel until he said he made the statement that he is a rebel. But outside of that, I always thought of him as something more than a rebel. And so I did a brief explanation, but I felt that I want to share more about this because I think it's important. I think that too many of us have over glorified the idea of a rebel, have held that in too high of a regard, to the point that it might blind us. Now, why I say that, I'm going to say from my own personal experience. When I first started business, I created a gym. And the whole foundational philosophy of that gym was being a rebel, you know? And the name was Honey Badgers. Honey Badgers was known as a fearless animal, and even the logo that we created, it was this badger with grenades on his front and wings of made of guns behind his back. It was quite something, and later on, as we refine our iteration of it, even then, instead of a gun, we replace it with a shield. So, and at that point in time, I didn't see that there is anything which is not optimal or not working or wrong about it. And later on, I think starting about last year or actually 2 years ago, I started asking myself this question: I'm fighting. I'm fighting for what? I'm fighting against what? Because you see, this whole idea of being a rebel, I'm going to pull out the definition of a rebel directly from Google. It says a person who rises in opposition or armed resistance against an established government or leader. As a verb, it says rise in opposition or armed resistance to an established government or leader. So therein lies a problem. What is the problem? The problem is this: if I identify my identity as a rebel, that means that I always want to rise in opposition or resistance or show resistance against any form of government or leadership. That would be my identity. Hi Zainab. So what is the problem, you might ask? The problem is, what happens to peace? What happens when there's peace? As a rebel, I am fighting to revolutionize something. But what happens if whatever that is happening right now is working? What happens is if I win? We all know if I lose, what happens. If I lose as a rebel, then my identity will be extinguished. But and if I don't win, I would maintain the status quo. I will constantly be challenging, but never really making any headway, and I'll just be like an annoying fly to whoever it is that is in charge. And if I do win, what happens? My identity would also be dissolved, would also be gone. And that is the reason why I think there are so many people who tries so hard to remain relevant, because whatever it is that they're fighting for is no longer relevant. But in order for them to create that relevant, because the identity is so attached to being a rebel, they constantly find new things about what is wrong about the world to constantly try to fix. My idea of a democracy, my worldview about democracy is that it's not perfect, in the same way as how calorie counting isn't perfect. But is it the best we got? Yeah, until a better way can be found. And the idea of a democracy is that we put people in charge. We do a collective voting, and we put people who we think is the best person to lead us to be in charge. And inadvertently, we make mistakes here and there. The person to blame is not the leaders, it's us. We're the ones to be blamed because we put them in charge, right? So corruption is gonna happen no matter what. Corruption is definitely gonna happen. Uh, System breakdowns, problems, it's definitely gonna show up. But to say that no, this is not working, we need to throw away everything, we'll be going back to World War, right? And that doesn't work too. So the whatever the solution is, it should never come at the cost of solving a current problem with a bigger problem, right? Because we don't want to do damage in our intention for good. Because good intention does not necessarily always translate to good results. In fact, it could be said that all the evils in the world, all the bad in the world happen out of good intentions. So, having said that, because whatever it is that we are facing right now, it is still not working, a change is necessary. A change is most definitely necessary. But what I think a change is necessary is not in the form of rebellion. It is in the form of radicalization. So you see, rebel is a term thrown by somebody who is not a rebel. So if I say this person is a rebel, what I'm actually saying is that I'm in charge, I have my way of right, and this person is being an annoyance, this person is being a nuisance. I'm saying that. So what happens if I call myself a rebel? So it basically means that I am being a nuisance. It's so weird, right? Now, a radical, however, is a different thing. A radical does not necessarily mean they have to be violent. They just do something which is radically different. Now, the definition of radical is this. As an adjective, especially of change or action, relating to or affecting the fundamental nature of something, far-reaching and thorough. Or, as a noun, is a person who advocates a thorough or complete political or social change, or a member of a political party or section of a party pursuing such aims. The key word here is advocate. Advocate complete political or social change. Basically, they are an advocate of change, of a fundamental, deeply rooted change. And when we are advocating something fundamental, deeply rooted change, it does not mean we are fighting for it. We may go about it in public forums. We may go about it in behind the scenes work. We may go about it by one at a time. Convincing allies to come to our side. We may go about it in any number of ways, but it does not necessarily need to be loud. It does not necessarily need to be disruptive. So, in that perspective, a rebel is someone who comes and they know deep in their heart what is right and what is wrong. They are righteous. They see what is right and what is wrong, and they decide what is necessary, and they go and do it. But a radical, they come, they study, they see what is working, they see what is not working, they ask more questions, they probe, they learn about the industry, they learn about the whole interconnectedness of everything. And then they see, and only if they see something which is not really working and that could be changed to something fundamentally different, then a radical will start to advocate for that fundamental change. And therefore, it does not necessarily mean a radical is disruptive. In fact, a radical might be completely cooperative. As an example, Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, right? The great politicians who are world-changing. What is the guy's name? Lincoln, who advocated human rights. Not necessarily disruptive. A rebel is born out of anger, out of thwarted intentions about how things should or should not be. A radical is a fountain of solution. It's a different solution, and sometimes the solution may be distasteful, but a radical has different ways of seeing things, different solutions in an attempt to solve a problem. Both of which, rebel and radical, they are both have good intention, but they go about it in a very different way. A rebellious approach versus a radical approach. A radical approach can be revolutionary, but it does not necessarily be disruptive. A rebellious approach can only be disruptive. But the question is why? Why is it that it must be so that I am disruptive? Why must I be disruptive? Why must I be revolutionizing and standing against something? And when I ask myself this question, the only answer that I came out for myself at the very least is that for ego. I need to feel good to be different from other people. I will feel good when people are giving me such level of attention. I'll feel good when, in the face of all odds, fighting as an underdog, I change the course of history. It feels damn good. By the end of the day, it is just purely for the sake of vanity that I become a rebel rather than a radical. Being a radical is to endure. Being a rebel is to be glorious. So I use this term to describe a rebel. A rebel is like fire. It's like fire. Glorious but brief. A radical, there is no metaphor for it. If I have to put it into a word, I think that a radical is a force of nature. It will come time and time again among the greats, among the leaders of the world, among the people who actually make changes, among the people who create impact, as opposed to the people who sits and complain. Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa is a radical, but she is not disruptive. Steve Jobs disrupted the entire industry, but he disrupted the entire industry in a way that is actually non-disruptive. He grew the entire industry. Abraham Lincoln, who freed the slaves. All of these movements, as compared to someone like Che Guevara. Che Guevara says, if you're enraged, you're with us. Very glorious, his life, very amazing. But ultimately, in the face of a greater change, I am not entirely sure what is the level of impact had he played ball instead. I'm not sure. I don't dare to give a commentary on that. However, having said that, I think that most of the leaders who manage to create worldwide impact are the ones who are supportive rather than disruptive. They're collaborative, they are not rebellious, and at the same time, they don't simply obey. They are radicals, not rebels. And that's all I have to share for today. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Chew on some of the things that I just shared about. Let me know what you guys think. Was I on point? Was I not on point? I'm not attached to being right. I just want to know. And sometimes verbalizing these things really makes it easy for me to digest it myself as well. So with that being said, I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Stay safe, stay true, stay healthy, stay happy. I'll see you soon.